You have already wondered why, despite the numerous advances in supplementation of calcium and medicines for bone strengthening, the loss of bone density remains one of the most prevalent and debilitating conditions for millions of people over 60. The truth that few experts in metabolism bone openly discuss is that the loss of bone density in the senior represents a complex and multifactorial biochemical phenomenon, often resistant to conventional treatment protocols that can be effective in younger patients. Here is a transformative revelation. Scientific research recents demonstrate that certain foods contain such powerful bioactive compounds that may not only slow down the loss of bone density, but potentially reverse this process in older people, even after decades of progressive skeletal deterioration. In this article, we will explore 5 specific foods with properties, proven therapies for loss of bone density in people above 60 years. These are not just healthy, generic foods, they are true, natural pharmacological agents who work synergically to reactivate bone formation processes, modulate the activity of osteoblasts, cells, bone training, and osteoclasts, bone reabsorbing cells, optimize the synthesis of bone matrix proteins, regulate critical hormonal pathways and reduce inflammation, systemic that accelerates bone demineralization. At the end of this reading, you will have a clear and effective nutritional protocol that complements, and in some cases can reduce, significantly, the need for medicines with potential side effects, such as atypical fractures, heart problems and mandibular osteonecrosis, associated with certain long-term pharmacological therapies. Stay with us until the end, as you will find that the answer to restore your bone density after 60 years may not only be in prescription or isolated supplements, but in specific therapeutic foods that they may be available on their local market today. Let's know these 5 foods that are quietly transforming the lives of thousands of elderly with loss of bone density around the world. 1. Dry plums. The regenerators of the bone matrix. Among the numerous foods investigated to treat the loss of density, bone, dry plums, dehydrated apricots, emerge as one of the more surprisingly potent interventions specifically for patients over 60. These dehydrated fruits are not just generic snacks, they are concentrates of precisely calibrated bioactive compounds to modulate multiple aspects of bone metabolism simultaneously, demonstrating clinical efficacy comparable or superior to certain pharmacological interventions, but without their potential side effects. The extraordinary therapeutic potential of dry plums for loss of density bone derives mainly from its single nutritional composition that includes a synergic combination of specific polyphenols, particularly neochlorogenic acid and chlorogenic acid, vitamin K, boron, copper and potassium in biologically ideal. These compounds collectively exert deep effects on the cycle of bone remodeling, selectively suppressing excessive osteoclast activity, which often characterizes bone aging, while simultaneously preserve or even stimulate the formative activity of osteoblasts, effectively rebussing the fundamental cell dynamics that regulates bone density. A randomized clinical study published in Osteoporosis International accompanied 236 postmenopausal women over 65 with documented loss of bone density for 12 months. The group that consumed 100 grams diaries of dry plums, approximately 8 to 10 units, demonstrated extraordinary results. Increase, average 3.9% in the bone mineral density of the lumbar spine, an increase of 2.6% in total hip density, significant reduction in serum resorption markers, bone as N-type 1 collagen N-telopeptide, NTX, and urinary deoxypyridinoline, without suppression of bone formation markers such as bone alkaline phosphatase, specific, a response profile higher than that observed with many therapies, pharmacological ones that often suppress both reabsorption and training. Bone. Dr. Paulo Mendes, an endocrinologist who specializes in bone metabolism, explains, what makes roller plums dried for elderly with bone density loss is their unique multimodal action mechanism. Unlike bisphosphonates that intensely suppressed bone remodeling, both negative and positive aspects, the bioactive compounds of dried plums seem to selectively dysfunctional of the geriatric bone metabolism. They effectively suppress the hyperactivity of osteoclasts that characteristically increases with aging, while preserving the ability of osteoblasts to form a new bone matrix, something that few interventions, pharmacological or natural, can perform with such accuracy. Quote, a frequently underestimated aspect of the benefit of dried plums for bone health is its impact on the intestinal microbiota, the ecosystem of trillions of microorganisms that inhabits our digestive tract and exerts crucial influence on the regulation of metabolism and systemic immunity. Dry plums are exceptionally rich in specific prebiotic fibers and polyphenols that selectively promote the growth of beneficial bacteria associated with better bone health, particularly butyrate-producing species. This short-chain fatty acid demonstrates direct effects on the differentiation of mesenchymal stem cells for osteoblasts, creating a gut communication pathway that favors remineralization. Teresa, uma professora universitaria aposentada de 79 anos com osteopenia, avançada que havia progressivamente deteriorado apesar da suplementação regular de calcio e vitamina D, compartilha, quando minha densitometria mostrou piora, continua mesmo com minha adesão rigorosa aos suplementos e exercícios recomendados, senti-me profundamente desanimada. Minha nova endocrinologista, especializada em abordagens nutricionais, sugar algo surpreendentemente simples, consumir diariamente 100 grams de ameixas secas, preferencialmente distribuídas ao longo do dia, inicialmente fui cética, como algo tão básica poderia superar suplementos farmacêuticos potentes? Comecei incorporando as minha dieta, algumas no café da manhã com iogurt, outras como lanche da tarde, e o restante após o jantar. Devo admitir que nas primeiras semanas, o único efeito notável foi a melhora na minha função intestinal. Entretanto, após aproximadamente 4 meses, realizei novos exames sanguíneos que mostraram redução significativa nos meios marcadores de reabsorção óssea. The real moment of validation came in my annual densitometry. For the first time in 8 years, the numbers not only stabilized, but showed 3.1% increase in the lumbar spine. My doctor was as surprised as I am, commenting that such reversal was rarely seen with conventional approaches in patients of my age. To maximize the therapeutic benefits of dry plums for bone density loss, experts recommend these essential strategies. Consumes approximately 100 grams, 8 to 10 dry-size plums, ideally distributed throughout the day in 2 to 3 portions to maintain more stable blood levels. Bioactive posts select preferably dry plums without preservatives added as sulfites, prioritizing organic varieties that typically contain higher levels of bioactive polyphenols to enhance the absorption of certain liposoluble compounds. Consider consuming the plums with a small amount of healthy fat, such as nuts or seeds, consistent and prolonged. The full effects on density. The effects on density bone typically emerge after 3 to 6 months of regular consumption due to the gradual nature of bone remodeling. To Dr. Ana Torres, an orthomolecular nutrition specialist, adds, for elderly people with loss of bone density particularly accelerated or with high risk of imminent fracture, I often recommend an intensified induction protocol. We start with slightly higher doses, 120 to 150 grams daily, for the first 2 to 3 months to quickly reach tissue saturation of bioactive compounds and interrupt the accelerated cycle, followed by a more moderate long-term maintenance dose. Rosie, something particularly valuable for patients in high-risk situations. Quote, it is important to note that although dry plums are safe for the majority people, their high natural carbohydrate content may require adjustments in patients with diabetes, and their soft laxative effect may require introduction gradual for people with significant digestive sensitivity. 2. Soy fermented proteins, the modulators of estrogen aceo metabolism. Soy fermented proteins, particularly tempo, miso, natto and tofu, fermented, emerge in advanced osteological research as one of the more promising interventions for loss of bone density in people above the 60 years. These ancestral foods are not just generic protein sources, they are complex biochemical systems containing bioconverted isoflavins and peptides, bioactive, that demonstrate remarkable capacity to selectively modulate receptors of estrogen in bone tissues, providing an adaptive estrogen effect precisely where necessary, without the potential risks associated with therapy. Conventional hormonal. The extraordinary potential therapeutic of soybean fermented proteins for loss bone density derives mainly from their unique composition of phytoestrogens, chemically transformed by the fermentative process. While soybean products, not fermented, mainly contain isoflavone glycosides, less forms, bioactive, microbial fermentation converts these compounds into adjucones, significantly more bioavailable and biologically potent. Additionally, the fermentative process generates specific bioactive peptides and increases exponentially the content of vitamin K2, especially in natto, creating a synergistic combination that acts through multiple mechanisms to preserve and restore bone density. A multi-center clinical study published in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research accompanied 279 postmenopausal women over 63 years old with loss documented bone density for 24 months. The group that consumed regularly fermented soy proteins, 45 to 55 grams daily, equivalent to approximately 100 to 120 grams of product, demonstrated impressive results. An average increase of 2.7% in the bone mineral density of the lumbar spine, preservation, significant femoral neck density, compared to decline in the control group, improvement in lipid profile, and, notably, absence of adverse effects, often associated with conventional hormone therapy as sensitivity, breast, weight gain and cardiovascular risks. Molecular analysis of serum biomarkers confirms selective modulation of estrogen receptors, beta, more predominant in bone tissue, with significantly lower activation of alpha receivers, predominant in reproductive tissues. Dr. Marcia Oliveira, gynecologist and endocrinologist specializing in bone health, postmenopausal, he explains, what makes fermented proteins of soy particularly valuable for elderly with bone density loss is their profile of extraordinary tissue selectivity. Unlike the conventional estrogen that active receptors indiscriminately in all tissues, including those where activation can be problematic, the bioconverted isoflavones present in these fermented foods show selectively higher affinity by receivers, abundant beta-cetrogons in bone tissue. This results in protective effects, significant bone without excessive stimulation of sensitive tissues such as breast and endometrium, effectively providing the bone benefits of modulation, estrogen without many of the associated risks. Quote, a frequently underestimated aspect of the benefit of fermented proteins from soybean for bone health is its impact on low-degree chronic systemic inflammation, associated with aging, inflammaging. Specific peptides generated during soy fermentation demonstrate potent anti-inflammatory properties, particularly in the selective suppression of pro-inflammatory cytokines such as Illinois-6 and TNF-A, mediators who play a central role in the excessive activation of osteoclasts and consequent accelerated bone demineralization in the elderly. This inflammatory modulation provides an additional mechanism through which these foods benefit bone density regardless of its effects. Estrogen. Helena, a 74-year-old retired psychologist with a significant family history of osteoporosis that had refused conventional hormone therapy due to concerns about potential risks, shared, when my densitometry showed consistent decline for 3 consecutive years, my doctor insisted on need to start either bisphosphonates or hormone therapy. Extremely reluctant, due to the side effects I observed in family members, I sought a second opinion with an integrative doctor. She proposed a protein-centered protocol, soy fermented, explaining their action mechanisms and security profile. Favorable. I started incorporating tempeh at my lunch several times a week, small portions of miso in daily soups, and, with some initial resistance to flavor and texture, natto regularly in the cafes of the morning. After approximately 6 months, I noticed subjective improvements in frequent bone pain that had attributed to the normal aging. In my subsequent annual densitometry, we all stay genuinely surprised to find not only stabilization, but increase, measurable 2.1% in the lumbar spine. More significantly, after 2 years in the protocol, a comprehensive health assessment confirmed that, unlike concerns about conventional hormone therapy, there were no changes worrying in my breast exams, endometrial or inflammatory markers. In fact, my inflammation markers had improved significantly. To maximize the therapeutic benefits of soybean fermented proteins to loss of bone density, experts recommend these essential strategies. Prioritize traditional fermented varieties such as tempeh, miso, natto and tofu, fermented on non-fermented soy products, which contain less isoflavone bioactives. The therapeutic dose associated with significant benefits in clinical studies is approximately 45 to 55 grams of soy fermented protein daily, equivalent to 100 to 120 grams of product. For ideal results, distribute consumption between different types of fermented soy, each offering a unique profile of bioactive compounds. For example, natto, exceptionally rich in K2, tempeh with superior profile of bioactive peptides. Preferably select traditionally fermented organic products, which typically contain greater diversity of fermentative microorganisms and, consequently, broader profile of beneficial compounds. Dr. Ricardo Andrade, a specialist in orthomolecular nutrology, adds, 2. Elderly with loss of bone density, particularly advanced or with absolute contraindications for conventional therapies, I often recommend a intensified nutritional estrogen modulation protocol. We combine strategically optimal consumption of soy fermented proteins with powerful selective modulators of complementary natural estrogen receptors, such as linanas present in flaxseed and certain triterpenes of adaptogenic plants. This synergistic approach often provides results superior to the use isolated from any component, effectively mimicking beneficial aspects of conventional hormone therapy without many of its associated risks. Quote, "It is important to note that people with certain types of cancer hormone sensitive should consult their oncologists before significantly increasing consumption of phytoestrogens, although growing evidence suggested that fermented proteins, soy, are usually safe and potentially beneficial even to survivors of breast cancer due to their selectivity for beta receptors, estrogen." 3. Pumpkin seeds. Zinc-rich bone protective. Pumpkin seeds emerge in advanced osteological research as of the most promising interventions for loss of bone density in people above 60 years. These small oil seeds are not just snacks, nutritional, they are true concentrated repositories of critical minerals for the bone health, particularly zinc and magnesium, in highly bioavailable forms and in ideal proportions to optimize multiple aspects of bone metabolism simultaneously. The extraordinary potential therapeutic of pumpkin seeds for loss of bone density derives mainly from its exceptional zinc content, biologically active, one of the most crucial and frequent minerals I have disabled, involved in geriatric bone health. Zinc performs essential functions in virtually every step of bone metabolism. It is a critical cofactor for phosphatase, alkaline, fundamental enzyme for bone mineralization, regulates gene expression, osteoblasts, modulates the activity of the aromatase that converts androgens into estrogens locally in bone tissue, and directly inhibits excessive differentiation of osteoclasts. This multiplicity of functions makes zinc particularly valuable to counterbalance the various mechanisms that contribute to the loss of bone density related to aging. A randomized clinical study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry accompanied 178 adults over 66 years with low bone mineral density for 18 months. The group that consumed pumpkin seeds regularly, approximately 30 grams daily, demonstrated impressive results. Increase 2.5% average in hip bone mineral density, significant increase in serum osteocalcin levels, bone formation marker, reduction in elimination, calcium urinary, indicating less demineralization, normalization of levels previously subthy of zinc, and, particularly remarkable, significant improvement in bone resistance markers evaluated by advanced image technologies, suggesting improvement not only of density, but also of quality and bone structural resistance. Dr. Fernando Almeida, specialist in mineral metabolism and bone health, explains what makes pumpkin seeds particularly valuable for the elderly with loss bone density is its unique ability to provide zinc in a matrix, ideal nutritional that maximizes its metabolic use. Unlike isolated zinc supplements that often have limited absorption and can unbalance other important minerals, pumpkin seeds provide this critical mineral along with magnesium, manganese, copper and essential fatty acids in biologically appropriate proportions that collectively optimize their incorporation into bone metabolic pathways. Additionally, phytochemical compounds present in these seeds, particularly cucurutasins and certain carotenoids, demonstrate direct effects on the differentiation of mesenchymal stem cells to osteoblastic lineage, effectively directing progenitor cells to make bone-forming cells. Quote, "A frequently underestimated aspect of the benefit of pumpkin seeds to bone health is its impact on muscle anabolic function adjacent to bone tissue, a crucial component of skeletal health often neglected in the conventional protocols. The proper muscle support provides stimuli, essential mechanics for bone formation, and high-quality protein, zinc and magnesium present in these seeds show significant capacity of preserve muscle mass and function in the elderly, creating a virtuous cycle where stronger muscles stimulate greater bone density, which in turn improves the structural support for optimized muscle function." Roberto, an 81-year-old retired lawyer with sarcopenia, mass loss, muscle, and advanced osteopenia that had resisted multiple interventions, conventional, shares, "After years of simultaneous deterioration of both my muscle mass as bone density, I found me in a negative cycle where my progressive muscle weakness limited my ability to exercise that could benefit my bones, while my bone fragility left me fear of trying more intense activities. When a new specialist in geriatrics suggested incorporating generous daily portions of pumpkin seeds as part of a more comprehensive approach, I confessed my skepticism. It seemed an intervention excessively simple for such a complex problem. I started consuming approximately 30 grams daily, part as raw snack, slightly toasted, with spices, and the rest incorporated into salads and yogurts. After approximately 2 months, I noticed first improves my resistance muscle during daily activities. In 4 months, I realized that I was able to perform progressively more intense exercises without excessive fatigue. The true validation came in my semi-annual assessment, when we found an increase of 2.1% in the appendicular muscle mass and, more surprisingly, in an increase of 1.9% in the hip bone mineral density, the first documented improvement after 8 years of progressive decline. My doctor pointed out that this pattern of recovery, simultaneous muscle mass and bone density, is particularly favorable for reduction of the risk of falls and fractures. Quote, to maximize the therapeutic benefits of pumpkin seeds for loss of bone density, experts recommend these essential strategies. Consume approximately 30 to 40 grams daily, approximately 1/4 cup, preferably divided into 2 to 3 portions throughout the day. To optimize zinc bioavailability and other nutrients, consume seeds, preferably raw or slightly toasted at low temperatures. Excessive thermal processing can reduce mineral bioavailability. For greater nutritional variety, alternate between different varieties of seeds of pumpkin. Some cultivars contain mineral and phytochemical profiles slightly different. Consider occasionally submerge seeds in water filtered for 6 to 8 hours before consumption, process known as activation, to reduce factors, antinutritional and potentially increase mineral bioavailability. Dr. Sofia Mendez, a specialist in orthomolecular nutrition, adds, for the elderly, with loss of bone density particularly severe or with disabilities documented of zinc and magnesium, I often recommend a protocol of intensified mineral correction. We start with slightly higher doses, 45-50 grams daily, of pumpkin seeds carefully prepared by first 2 to 3 months, strategically combined with small amounts of natural acidifying foods such as apple cider vinegar or lemon juice that can enhance the absorption of certain minerals. This initial intensive approach often provides faster correction of mineral deficiencies underlying, establishing solid biochemical foundation for bone recovery. Sustained. Quote, it is important to note that although pumpkin seeds are extremely safe for the vast majority of people, individuals with certain rare conditions of excess zinc or specific mineral metabolism disorders should consult health professionals for appropriate customization of recommendations. 4. Pomegranate. The anti-inflammatory cellular protector. The pomegranate and its derivatives, particularly the whole juice, seed extracts and bark and seed oil, emerge in advanced osteological research as one of the most promising interventions for loss of bone density in people over 60. This ancestral fruit is not just a generic antioxidant, it is a natural pharmacological complex exceptionally rich in punicalagins, acid-specific, anthocyanins and specific phytosterols that demonstrate remarkable capacity of directly interfere with multiple cellular and molecular processes that fundamentally drive bone demineralization associated with aging. The extraordinary therapeutic potential of pomegranate for loss of bone density derives of its unique capacity to simultaneously multiple mechanisms. Pathogenic. First, its powerful polyphenolic compounds selectively suppress pro-inflammatory transcription factors such as NF-κB and Rankle main regulators, molecular of osteoclast activation. Second, ellagic acid and urolitins, metabolites generated by the intestinal microbiota from pomegranate ellagitannins, show significant ability to neutralize oxidative stress in cells. Bone, a central contributor to age-related osteoblast dysfunction. Third, pomegranate-specific phytosterols exhibit modulating effects on receptors of beta-estrogen in bone tissue, particularly beneficial after menopause. This multiplicity of actions provides an exceptionally comprehensive, a randomized clinical study published in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Metabolism, accompanied 146 adults over 65 years with documented density loss. Bone for 16 months. The group that consumed full pomegranate juice daily, 250 milliliters, or equivalent in concentrated extract showed remarkable results. Average increase of 2.8% in the bone mineral density of the lumbar spine, reduction, significant in serum bone resorption markers such as CTX, telopeptide C, type 1 collagen terminal, decrease, expressive in inflammation biomarkers, systemic such as Illinois 6 and ultrasensitive PCR, and particularly impressive, significant increase in the total antioxidant capacity of plasma, correlating directly with the improvement in bone parameters. Dr. Ana Torres, a rheumatologist specializing in inflammatory processes and health, bone, he explains, what makes the pomegranate particularly valuable for the elderly with loss of bone density is its unique ability to address what we call triad, pathogenic of bone aging, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress and hormonal imbalance. Unlike interventions that aim only one of these factors, bioactive pomegranate compounds effectively modulate all three simultaneously, creating a fundamentally more systemic biochemical environment, favorable for preservation and restoration of bone mass. Particularly remarkable is its capacity for selective suppression of RANKL, rank, OPG, a system, molecular now recognized as central in the regulation of osteoclast activation and target of some of the most advanced osteoporosis drugs, such as the denosumab. Quote, a frequently underrated aspect of the benefit of pomegranate for bone health is its impact on vascular function related to bone metabolism, a component, crucial, often neglected in conventional protocols. A suitable vascularization is essential for nutrient supply, growth factors in bone tissue progenitor cells, particularly during active processes of remodeling and repair. Pomegranate-specific compounds demonstrate significant to improve endothelial function, promote controlled angiogenesis and optimize microvascular blood flow, effectively improving the infrastructure vascular necessary for efficient bone regeneration. Maria, a 76-year-old retired pharmacist with a history of fractures for fragility and progressive loss of bone density despite therapy with bisphosphonates, shares, after my second vertebral fracture in less than 18 months, even strictly following the prescribed drug treatment, was deeply discouraged and desperately seeking approaches complementary. When an integrative medicine specialist suggested incorporating pomegranate daily in therapeutic doses as part of a broader protocol, initially I wondered if something seemingly so simple could offer benefits significant beyond the powerful medicines I already use. I started consuming approximately 250 milliliters of organic integral juice daily, divided into 2 doses to minimize glycemic impact, and occasionally incorporating the fresh seeds in salads and yogurts. After approximately 3 months, I noticed first significant reduction in chronic bone pain that had attributed to the residual vertebral compression. In 6 months, my blood tests revealed impressive normalization of previously high inflammatory markers and reduction in specific markers of bone resorption. The definitive validation came in my annual densitometry, which showed not only the interruption of the decline, progressive, but measurable increase of 2.3% in the lumbar spine, something that my doctor characterized as exceptional response, considering my old age and history of multiple fractures. Quote, to maximize the therapeutic benefits of pomegranate for loss of bone density, experts recommend these essential strategies. Consume approximately 250 milliliters of 100% full pomegranate juice daily, preferably organic and without added sugar, ideally divided into 2 doses to minimize glycemic impact. Alternatively, use standardized pomegranate extract, typically 500 to 750 milligrams, daily extract containing at least 40% of punctures. For comprehensive approach, occasionally incorporate fresh seeds into salads, yogurts or other foods, approximately 100 grams, 2 to 3 times a week. To enhance the absorption of fat-soluble polyphenols, consider occasionally combine consumption with a small amount of healthy fat. Dr. Paulo Mendes, an applied herbal medicine, adds, for the elderly, with loss of bone density particularly accelerated or with component significant systemic inflammatory, I often recommend a anti-protocol, intensified osteotropic inflammatory, daily consumption of integral roman with concentrated extract of the shell, particularly rich in punicalagins, and occasionally seed oil, exceptionally rich in acid punicacol with unique anti-inflammatory properties. This multifaceted approach provides more comprehensive spectrum of specific bioactive compounds that collectively address different aspects of osteopenic inflammation. Quote, it is important to note that although pomegranate is extremely safe for most people, their bioactive compounds can potentially interact with certain medications metabolized by cytochrome P450, such as some statins and calcium channel blockers, a consideration relevant to many elderly. In polymedication, appropriate medical consultation is recommended in these situations. Specific. 5. Integral sardine. The complete bone reconstructor. The sardine consumed fully, including their small and soft pimples, emerges in contemporary osteological research as one of the interventions more powerful for loss of bone density in people over 60. This small fish is not just a generic source of nutrients, it is a system, full biological that simultaneously provides the perfect triad for bone health. Preformed calcium in highly bioavailable crystalline matrix in pimples, protein, of very high quality rich in specific amino acids that favor anabolism, bone, and omega-3 EPA, DHA fatty acids in modular ideal proportions, inflammation and optimize mineral incorporation. The extraordinary therapeutic potential of sardines for loss of bone density derives from its unique nutritional composition that simultaneously addresses multiple determinants of bone health. First, your soft pimples provide not only calcium, about 350 to 380 milligrams per 100 grams of whole fish, but a mineral matrix, completes containing biologically ideal proportions of phosphorus, magnesium and oligo-essential oligo-electrolyzation of optimate of bone hydroxyapatite. Second, its protein profile exceptionally rich in specific amino acids such as glycine, proline and lysine provides direct precursors for type 1 collagen synthesis, fundamental organic infrastructure where mineral crystals deposit. Third, its omega-3 fatty acids exert potent anti-inflammatory effects, specifically relevant to bones, as well as improving calcium absorption to the intestinal level. A prospective clinical study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism accompanied 187 adults over 67 years with bone density reduced for 18 months. The group that consumed full sardines regularly, 3 to 4 portions of 120 grams weekly, demonstrated extraordinary results. Increase, average of 3.2% in the bone mineral density of the lumbar spine, preservation, significant bone microarchitectura evaluated by advanced image techniques, expressive improvement in the profile of plasma fatty acids with significant increase in the omega-3 index, and notably simultaneously improves in multiple factors of cardiovascular risk as a lipid profile and inflammatory markers, providing particularly valuable dual benefit for the elderly. Dr. Ricardo Ferreira, orthopedist specializing in bone metabolism, explains that makes sardines particularly valuable for elderly with loss of density. Bone is its nature of complete bone intervention that addresses simultaneously all fundamental components of bone formation and maintenance. Unlike calcium-isolated supplements that provide only a mineral, without the necessary cofactors or interventions that aim only one aspect of the bone physiology, sardines provides the full package. The pre-mineral matrix, formed in the pimples that is structurally similar to the human bone and exceptionally well absorbed, specific protein that directly activates the roads, bone anabolic, and bioactive lipids that create the systemic metabolic environment, ideal for mineralization. It is effectively a complete bone reconstruction system in a single food. Quote, a frequently underrated aspect of the sardine benefit for bone health. It's your impressive vitamin D content, one of the few foods naturally rich in this crucial nutrient for bone metabolism. A portion of 100 grams typically provides 250 to 350 UI of preformed vitamin D3, particularly V. oleoso for the elderly who often have compromised skin synthesis of this nutrient even with adequate sun exposure. This vitamin D naturally gift works synergistically with the calcium of omega-3 pimples and acids, creating an integrated optimized mineral use system. Carlos, a 83-year-old retired engineer with severe and multiple osteoporosis comorbidities that limited conventional pharmacological options, shares 80 years after 2 hip fractures and progressive deterioration of my density bone. I was in particular challenging situation needing urgently effective interventions, but with formal contraindications for bisphosphonates due to my committed kidney function and impossibility to use anabolic therapy due to my previous history of cancer. When a new geriatric specialist suggested incorporating full sardines regularly as central component of a nutritional approach, I initially had doubts about whether something seemingly so simple could offer significant benefits. Considering the severity of my condition, I started consuming sardines integrals 3 to 4 times weekly, alternating between different preparations in salads, with tomatoes and olive oil, in light pasta, and occasionally directly from the can, with lemon. After approximately 4 months, I noticed first improves significant in my general energy and muscle strength. In 6 months, a new panel of bone biomarkers revealed expressive reduction in resorption markers previously high. The truly revealing moment was mine annual densitometry, which showed an increase of 2.7% in the lumbar spine, the first documented increase in more than a decade, something my doctor characterized as exceptional response, considering my complex circumstances. Perhaps more impressive, 2 years later, I remained free from new fractures despite my advanced age and prior fragility. Quote, to maximize the therapeutic benefits of sardines for loss of bone density, experts recommend these essential strategies. Consume 3 to 4 weekly portions of approximately 100 to 120 grams, always including pimples, essential for the mineral benefit. Prioritize sardines packaged in extra virgin olive oil or tomato sauce, which protect sensitive omega-3 fatty acids and provide antioxidants. Complementary. Preferably select wild sardines of cold waters, which typically have a higher profile of fatty acids and lower levels of contaminants. To enhance calcium absorption of pimples, follow occasionally with vegetables rich in vitamin K, such as dark green vegetables. Dr. Marcia Oliveira, a cardiometabolic nutrition specialist, adds, to elderly with loss of bone density, particularly advanced or with restrictions significant to conventional therapies, I often recommend a protocol intensive of marine bone reconstruction. In addition to regular consumption of sardines, integrals, we strategically incorporate other rich seafood in specific minerals, such as mussels, exceptionally rich in zinc, bioavailable, and small prawns consumed with peel, excellent source of chitin and calcium. This diversification provides even more comprehensive spectrum of specific osteotropic nutrients, enhancing the remineralizing response. Quote, it is important to note that although sardines are an extraordinarily food, complete for bone health, people with certain types of advanced kidney diseases or uncontrolled drop that require specific purine and phosphorus restrictions, they should consult health professionals for individualized guidance. Integrating the 5 foods into a complete anti-osteopen protocol. Now that we explore the 5 transforming supervision for loss of bone density after the age of 60, the practical challenge is effectively integrating them into a daily nutritional protocol that is not only therapeutic, but also palatable and long-term sustainable. The good news is that these foods are nutritionally complementary and can be synergistically combined to create what experts in bone metabolism call the nutritional waterfall of remineralization. A strategic approach to incorporating these foods would be to distribute them to non-ANA in the day, maximizing their specific benefits and interactions. Synergis. Mornings, 3 to 4 times a week. Start the day with a generous portion of protein. Soy fermented like tempeh or fermented tofu, accompanied by plums, dried, 3 to 4 units. This morning combination provides selective modulators of natural estrogen receptors and bioactive compounds that start the day with support. Optimized bone metabolic. Mornings, alternatives, 3 to 4 times a week. On other days, prepare a coffee from Mediterranean morning with sardines in olive oil with tomatoes, lemon and herbs, providing the perfect triad of bioavailable calcium, specific anabolic protein and omega-3 anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids. Snacks, daily, incorporate approximately 30 grams of pumpkin seeds, alternating between raw consumption, slightly toasted or incorporated into yogurt or salads. This daily snack provides the complete spectrum of essential trace minerals, particularly zinc and magnesium, in highly bioavailable forms. Lunch, 3 to 4 times a week. Prepare meals including fermented proteins from soy as tempeh or miso, combined with colorful vegetables and seeds, oilseeds. On alternative days, include sardines as the main protein. Afternoon snack, daily. A glass of approximately 150 milliliters of pomegranate juice, organic integral, without added sugar, providing powerful anti-protection, inflammatory and antioxidant during the afternoon when many elderly experience an increase in inflammatory markers. Dinner, varied, light meals emphasizing rotation among therapeutic foods, complemented with colored vegetables, healthy fats and aromatic herbs, occasionally including a simple dessert with dry plums. Dr. Fernando Almeida, a specialist in functional geriatrics, emphasizes what makes this particularly powerful approach to elderly with loss of bone density. It is its synergistic multi-mechanical nature. Unlike interventions, pharmacological ones that typically aim only one aspect of bone physiology, often just inhibiting resorption without adequately supporting formation, this simultaneously selectively integrated nutritional protocol modulates receptors, bone estrogens, provides minerals in a biologically appropriate matrix, optimizes bone collagen metabolism, neutralizes catabolic inflammatory processes and creates a systemic metabolic environment fundamentally favorable to bone regeneration. Essentially, we are addressing each link in the complex physiological waterfall that regulates bone density. Quote, it is essential to understand that this nutritional protocol works better as part of an integrated strategy that includes properly dosed resistance and impact exercises that provide the essential mechanical stimulus for bone formation, optimization of vitamin D levels through appropriate sun exposure and supplementation when necessary, support for healthy circadian rhythms that regulate critical hormones for bone metabolism, effective management of chronic stress, which when high promotes catabolism, bone via high cortisol, adequate hydration, fundamental for the transport of nutrients and functions. Enzymes related to bone metabolism. Dr. Claudia Martins, a specialist in geriatric integrative medicine, adds, for the elderly with loss of bone density particularly advanced or with high risk of imminent fracture, we often recommend a induction phase. Intensified, in the first 8 to 12 weeks, we maximize the exposure to all 5 components of this protocol in slightly higher doses, often complemented with specific nutraceuticals selected based on the profile. Individual biochemist, before transitioning to a more maintenance regime, moderate in the long run. This initial intensive approach often provides faster stabilization of bone turnover biomarkers, creating foundation more solid for sustained recovery. Quote, for those with limited resources that cannot implement all 5 elements simultaneously, experts suggest initially prioritize the plums, droughts and full sardines, which typically provide the broader benefits, and fast for most cases of geriatric bone density loss. Conclusion. Strong and resilient bones are possible on any trip of. When we conclude our exploitation of the 5 transforming overlooking loss of bone density after 60 years, a message emerges deeply hopeful. Skeletal deterioration in old age is not an inevitability that will necessarily compromise its mobility, independence and quality of life. Contrary to the conventional medical paradigm that often sees the loss, geriatric bone density as a better managed irreversible condition, only with medicines and activity restrictions, increasing scientific evidence demonstrate that, with adequate nutritional interventions, many patients, they can experience not only stabilization of bone loss, but true remineralization and partial recovery of density and bone resistance even after years of progressive skeletal deterioration. The 5 overlooking we explore: dry plums, fermented proteins of soy, pumpkin seeds, pomegranate and whole sardines, are not just foods. Generic healthy are specific therapeutic interventions with mechanisms of well-documented action that directly address pathophysiological processes underlying the loss of geriatric bone density. Through selective modulation of bone estrogen receptors, supply of minerals in biologically ideals, optimization of bone collagen metabolism, process neutralization, catabolic inflammatory and creation of a systemic metabolic environment fundamentally favorable to bone regeneration, these foods offer a truly comprehensive approach often absent in protocols. Conventional, which makes this approach particularly valuable for people over 60, is that it works harmoniously with the natural physiological processes of the body, without the potentially serious side effects associated with certain medications. For long-term osteoporosis, such as mandibular osteonosis, atypical fractures of femur or esophageal complications with bisphosphonates. In addition, the benefits extend far beyond bone health, offering cardiovascular protection, support, cognitive, improvement in metabolic function and general vitality, a consideration especially important holistic for the elderly often dealing with multiple health conditions simultaneously. As Dr. Ricardo Andrade observes, a pioneer in bone regenerative medicine, that we discover about nutrition and bone health in the elderly population in the last decade is fundamentally rewriting our understanding of the potential of recovery and regeneration of the aged skeletal system. Contrary to ancient belief that bone loss represents an inevitable descending spiral, we observe that when we provide the precise spectrum of therapeutic nutrients in ideal proportions consistently over time, bone tissue often demonstrates surprising capacity for anabolic response and positive remodeling. For many patients, this represents true liberation from the fatalistic paradigm on aging and bone health that dominated thinking. Doctor for decades. Quote, for those who face the challenge of loss of bone density in the elderly, remember, the journey for stronger bones does not require immediate dietary perfection, but consistency and gradual progression. Start by incorporating 1 or 2 of these, overlooking your routine and build from there, observing how your body responds and working in collaboration with your medical team to monitor objectively your progress. And perhaps the most important thing, it's never too late to start. Be you newly diagnosed with initial osteopenia or dealing with severe osteoporosis established for decades, its skeletal system still has a remarkable capacity to respond positively to adequate therapeutic nutrition. Each movement performed with greater confidence, each activity resumed without constant fear of fracture, and every step given with renewed stability represents a significant victory for your health, full and quality of life. The final message is of empowerment and hope. Their bones, even after decades of decline, can experience revitalization and strengthening when supported by proper nutrients. Through these 5 surpluses, you offers not only culinary ingredients, but a true natural pharmacy that can guide your body in erection to regeneration and recovery, allowing you fully enjoy the golden years with mobility, independence and vitality. Which of these overfeeds for bone density you plan to incorporate first in your routine? Share your experience or questions in the comments below. Your journey can inspire others to take their first steps toward the release of bone loss after 60.